knows more about Agenda 21 than I think anybody I've ever heard of. He's been studying it since the beginning, 20 years. And we're thrilled to have him here to talk. Hello. Tom?
Thank you, and thank you everybody for coming out today. I know it's Memorial Day weekend and it's hard to turn people out, but I want to tell you something. Don't be discouraged by numbers. You guys are all leaders, that's why you're here. And my friend Fred Gilo just came in a few minutes ago, and he knows he was there with us from the beginning with Henry Lamb, who was the man who discovered Agenda 21 and brought it to us. And for about 10 years, we had 10 national conferences, and each one had the exact same 100 people every time. And we'd say, hey, it's Old Home Week, glad to see you, how you doing? What we were doing was we were teaching people. And we went for 18 years where only ranchers, farmers, people in the mining industry, timber industry, who were the first people attacked by this, understood what we were up against. And all of a sudden, it exploded in the cities about 3 years ago. And I know, I talk to people who see this for the first time, and they're absolutely overwhelmed by how huge this issue is and how all-encompassing it is. And they don't think, what can I do? What can I do? We can't, just a little group of us, we can't change this. I want to tell you something. From my perspective, from watching it for over 20 years, where no one was listening, about 4 of us going around the country talking about this, to today, we are, and this is appropriate for Memorial Day, we are on Normandy, we are on Utah Beach, and we're moving inward. We finally got a foothold, and we're starting to move in. And that's how we need to look at it. I'm thrilled to see what's happening across the country. There are hundreds of people now talking about Agenda 21, and there are thousands of activists that are involved, and the other side is terrified of us. So you've got to keep all that in perspective as we go through it. So I'm going to go through about a half an hour of more of a formal presentation of what Agenda 21 is. I have to do it that way because it is so huge. It's easy to leave out some important things. The second half, every one of you is going to be involved. And these are non-speaking parts, so you don't have to be nervous, you don't have to practice. But you're all going to be involved. I'm going to show you some new tools of how we're fighting back. So, Agenda 21. They laugh, they ridicule our opposition, and they attack. In just the past month, there have been 4 major coordinated attacks launched against those of us fighting to stop Agenda 21. The first came from the American Planning Association. It issued a report entitled, The Actions of Discontent. The APA is reeling from our opposition and is desperately trying to find a strategy to stop us. The second came a week later from the Southern Poverty Law Center. It was an in-depth report. I think it was written by a 10-year-old, but it's an in-depth report entitled Agenda 21, the UN, Sustainability, and Right-Wing Conspiracy Theory. And this, I'm proud to say, in this 23-page report, I'm cited 23 times as the recognized leader of the opposition. If they think that hurts me, I'm thrilled. The third came a week later, issued by the Natural Resources Defense Council and treehugger.com. They issued similar attacks, and again, they called me the king of conspiracy theories. And finally, just this last week, Newsweek magazine published a front cover attack called The Plots to Destroy America. And it's all based on the Southern Poverty Law Center report. Over and over again, in these reports, they insist that our arguments against Agenda 21 are unfounded and Says the report by the Southern Poverty Law Center, quote, Agenda 21 is not a treaty. It is not force of law, no enforcement mechanism, no penalties, no significant funding, end quote. Instead, said the report, Agenda 21 seeks to encourage, you remember that word, it seeks to encourage communities around the world to come up with their own solutions to overpopulation, pollution, poverty, and resource depletion. And it goes on to say, it is a feel-good guide that cannot force anyone anywhere to do anything at all. And then the overview concludes with this quote. It says, the media needs to stop reporting on Agenda 21 as if it were a bona fide controversy and plainly state the facts about the plan. And communities around the country, some of which have abandoned work on sustainability plans because of the heat, need to return to or start to develop such plans in tandem with responsible groups like the American Planning Association. There you have it. Case closed. Stop listening to your constituents, elected officials, that you are supposed to represent. Where does that sound familiar? It's just like the debate over global warming. They insist that the issue is settled because they say it is. Doesn't matter that thousands of scientists are standing up saying, I don't see any, I can't find any. Doesn't matter that we had 17 years of no warming whatsoever. Doesn't matter. Just shut up and do it. Apparently, we aren't allowed to discuss or debate the issue in just political discourse. It's not allowed. Just enforce the policy. Now, I'm spending this much time telling you about their opposition to let you know how desperate they are to discredit our opposition. Their greatest fear is that the nation will hear the truth and their agenda will fall like a house of cards because it's all built on lies. But I'm going to keep doing it. And I'm going to keep telling Americans about Agenda 21, what it's all about, and the facts that they are trying to hide. And at least that will help you decide if their agenda is the future that you want or not. And if it's not what you want, and you want to fight this transformation of our country, then I'll also give you some powerful new tools that we've devised to stop it in your community. This is the stuff the American Planning Association and the Southern Poverty Law Center do not want you to hear. So, I know it's a hard issue to understand, and even harder to explain to your friends and neighbors. We're told it's just an environmental issue, a land conservation policy, a sensible development policy, sustainable. What's wrong with that? I'm here to tell you that none of these ideas have anything to do with conservation or environmental protection. The Sustainable Development logo used in most literature on the subject by them contains 3 connecting circles. Each one is labeled. One is labeled social equity, one is labeled economic prosperity, and one is labeled ecological integrity. We know them as the 3 E's. These 3 things affect every aspect of your life. And I will tell you straight out, if you fail to grasp the social equity aspect of sustainable development, then you simply have no grasp of this issue, period. You've got to understand this. Social equity is based on a demand for what we hear all the time now, social justice. Social equity and social justice require that the world's wealth be shared between those who produce and those who don't. It's every welfare program and wealth redistribution scheme ever devised, all in one plan. Redistribution of wealth, by the way, means everyone is equally poor, not equally rich. It means no one can move forward unless everyone can move forward together. Kumbaya! It's a utopian myth that cannot be achieved, especially through government edict. And by the way, Karl Marx was the first to coin the phrase social justice. The second E Economic prosperity means public-private partnerships. It means businesses become a tool for government to implement sustainable policy in the products and services that you buy. Corporations that play ball get the power of government, and government gets to hide behind the independence of private business. Thus, the partnership between corporations and government is done at the expense of ordinary people, an exact opposite of free markets controlled by consumers. This is the new way business is being run in America under sustainable development. It's certainly not free enterprise or open markets. The true description is government-sanctioned monopolies, right out of the Mussolini fascist playbook. And of course, the third E, ecological integrity, is just the excuse for it all. They just look at you and say, sorry about your rights, but if we don't save the planet, then we'll all perish. Environmental Armageddon is a very useful threat. Sustainable development is code for a policy designed to transform human society, essentially eliminating individual life decisions and replacing them with top-down, one-size-fits-all government control. The unstated truth about Agenda 21 is that it is someone else deciding your future for you. And obviously, they don't want any interference with their lofty goals. In steady fashion, the agenda for this new policy, designed at the international level, is put in place piece by piece, with a new government council here, a new regulation there, each designed to appear as a local development program. Like the proverbial frog in the slowly boiling pot, many Americans fail to notice the rise of government heat. And so, with the devastation of 1,000 pinpricks, America, in its form of limited government involvement in our lives, is being changed through the creation of non-elected boards, councils, and regional governments designed to enforce the new regulation to control our every action. The pinpricks come disguised as such issues as controls on community development that affect private property use, controls on use of open space, creation of development areas, meaning the only place where infrastructure like roads or cell towers are allowed. In my county of Fauquier, Virginia, where the Piedmont Environmental Council controls the entire county, they had a report in the newspaper of the Planning Commission, and they were complaining because they had set aside these development areas, and this is where we're putting cell towers, this is where we're building roads, this is where we're going to have houses. But these darn people over here keep trying to eliminate areas where we didn't put that stuff. Doggone those people on their property. And the excuse usually is, at least in my county, in the Civil War area, it's historic preservation. Planners are making it harder to drive cars as they make the roads more narrow, and then they block what is left with bike lanes. As they work to force us out of our cars, they are spending billions on mass transit boondoggle projects. And all of this goes hand in hand with a never-ending spending spree to prop up inefficient, unworkable alternative energies such as wind and solar power. In fact, control of energy and water are the two most effective tools in the enforcement of the sustainable agenda. Without energy and water, human society stops. Using strict controls on how or even if energy and water can be used provides government with the power to dictate every aspect of our society. Control of water is the attack now being employed by the EPA all across the western states as a means to move ranchers off their land. It is the root of the Bureau of Land Management's attack on rancher Clive Bundy in Nevada. Let me give you 6 leading issues that we all face every day to show you how they are directly connected to Agenda 21 and sustainable development. And I'm not going to just give you this information. I'm going to give you direct quotes from the proponents of these policies so there can be no doubt of their true purpose or their origin. First issue, It has been so discredited in the true scientific community that proponents have become almost silly in their continued attempts to push it. So why? Why don't they stop? Why is it so vitally important that they continue to promote something that clearly is unproven, to say the very least? It's because all of Agenda 21 policy is built on the excuse that man is destroying the earth. Climate change is their proof. To eliminate that premise is to remove all credibility and purpose for their entire agenda. They are willing to go to any length, even lies, to keep the climate change foot on our throats. Now, don't take my word for it. Let them speak for themselves. Christine Stewart, the former Canadian Minister of the Environment, said this, quote, "No matter if the science of global warming is all phony, climate change provides the greatest opportunity to bring out justice and equality in the world." Equality? Oh yeah, redistribution of wealth. Timothy Worth, president of the UN Foundation and a former official in the Clinton administration, said this, quote, "We've got to ride this global warming issue. Even if the theory of global warming is wrong, we will be doing the right thing in terms of economic and environmental policy." End quote. Paul Watson, co-founder of Greenpeace, said it clearer than anybody else. Their entire agenda. It doesn't matter what is true. It only matters what people believe is true. Issue 2. Creating fear of overpopulation. It's the central driving force behind nearly every sustainable policy initiative. The fact is, in developed nations, populations are actually going down. The only real growth in the United States in recent years has been immigration, whether it's legal or illegal. In the face of their fear of overpopulation, however, it's interesting to note that studies have shown there is no worldwide population crisis. In fact, one study I've read insists that we could put the entire population of the world in an area the size of Texas with a population density of Paris, France. Now, every time I say that in Texas, somebody shouts out, "We don't want them." Overpopulation and its accompanying environmental degradation is a problem only in poor countries that lack the ability by the poor to improve their conditions. Nations that refuse to legalize private property rights for the masses, for example, is a primary reason for their poverty. And when you're poor, do you really care about the environment? And what do? You have more and more and more children. That's what happens in poor nations. Instead of working to solve the real problem, which is poverty, they exploit the excuse of overpopulation and advocate enforcing policies to drastically reduce populations. China's brutal one-child policy of forced abortions and sterilization has become their model. Does that sound outrageous? Well, then consider this quote by David Brower of the Sierra Club. He said, quote, "Childbearing should be a punishable crime against society unless the parents hold a government license. All potential parents should be required to use contraceptive chemicals, the government issuing antidotes to citizens chosen for childbearing." End quote. 1984? And by the way, Hillary Clinton is a major proponent of licensing for parents. And then there's this one from the United Nations Global Biodiversity Assessment. Quote, I'm talking about population control. "A reasonable estimate for an industrialized world society at the present North American material standard of living would be 1 billion people. At a more frugal European standard of living, 2 to 3 billion would be possible." Talk about God on high. we live on less, actually advocating poverty as a means of achieving sustainability. In other words, enforcing the very thing that causes populations to skyrocket instead of diminish. Agenda 21. Issue 3. The goal of Agenda 21 is the destruction of the free market system. We've heard statement after statement from the UN, from members of Congress, the White House, the news media, and even Hollywood. All of the writing the free market system is evil, corrupt, and a tool of the rich to hold down the poor. Redistribution of wealth and social justice are behind every policy that comes out of the UN and the Obama administration. The EPA is the attack dog to shut down entire industries like coal. It has become very difficult to operate a manufacturing business in the U.S. and nearly impossible to start a new one. Environmental protection is always the excuse, even when Obama's own State Department has said the Keystone Pipeline is not an environmental problem. 2 years ago, at the UN's Rio Plus 20 summit, where they were celebrating 20 years of Agenda 21, where 50,000 delegates were there. Of course, it means nothing. World leaders were all there, and it doesn't mean anything. Don't pay attention to that man behind the curtain. At that summit, from the podium, by officials brought there to speak, they were talking about the issue of zero economic growth. It was advocated to just keep things fair. It was stated that even the building of new roads upsets the status quo and disrupts a well-ordered society. Such idiotic ideas as these are driving sustainable development in our country. And again, these are not my words. Let them tell you for themselves. Dave Foreman, the founder of Earth First, one of the driving forces behind Agenda 21, said, quote, "We must make this an insecure and inhospitable place for capitalists and their projects. We must reclaim the roads and plowed lands, halt dam construction, tear down existing dams, free shackled rivers, and return to wilderness millions of acres of presently settled land." Friends, that is your home he's talking about so cavalierly. What are we going to do with you? Oh yeah, we're going to herd you into mega cities and high-rises, pack and stack, get you off this land. Professor Maurice King, a major population control advocate, said this, quote, "Global sustainability requires the deliberate quest of poverty." Let me say that again. Global sustainability requires the deliberate quest of poverty, reduced resource consumption, and set levels of mortality control. And they call me nuts? Marxist author Ted Trainer wrote in his book, Transition to a Sustainable and Just World. He's a Marxist. He wrote this, quote, "The alternative has to be the simpler way, a society based on non-affluent lifestyles within mostly small and highly sufficient local economies under local participatory control and not driven by market forces or the profit motive, and with no economic growth. There must be an enormous cultural change away from competitive, individualist acquisitiveness." And he went on to say, "Local planning focuses on curtailing energy and natural resources and land use." He said it, not me. You want more proof as to the real goals of Agenda 21? Then just Google sustainability Marxism. I haven't even scratched the surface with these few quotes. But your local planning groups and your elected officials who deal with them on a daily basis like to assure you that their projects are all local, made with local input, and have absolutely nothing to do with Agenda 21. not so fast. The American Planning Association has set up a whole section on its website to answer our attacks and swear to the world that they have nothing to do with Agenda 21. It's called Agenda 21 Myths and Facts. In it, the group goes to extreme measures to distance itself and its policies from Agenda 21, specifically saying the American Planning Association has no affiliation regarding any policy goals or recommendations of the United Nations. Really? Well, then it would be interesting to hear the APA explain the following documented information. First is this bit of information found in one of the APA's own newsletters from its Northern California area members from 1994. The article was a commentary entitled, "How Sustainable is Our Planning?" It was written just 2 years after the Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro, where Agenda 21 was first introduced to the world. The 5th paragraph of this article says, quote, "Vice President Gore's book, Earth in the Balance, addressed many of the general issues of sustainability." By the way, Al Gore was one of the driving forces at the Earth Summit to create Agenda 21. But they had nothing to do with that, you understand. Al Gore's article addressed many of those issues. Within the past year, the article goes on to say, the President's Council on Sustainable Development has been organized to develop recommendations for incorporating sustainability into the federal government. I thought this was all local ideas. Also, it says, various groups have been formed to implement Agenda 21, a comprehensive blueprint for sustainable development that was adopted at the recent Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro. In that one paragraph, this document brings together the American Planning Association, which is in every single community in America, the largest planning group in America that says they have nothing to do with this, brings them together with Agenda 21, the UN's Earth Summit, Al Gore, Sustainable Development, the President's Council on Sustainable Development, NGO groups with a specific mission of implementing Agenda 21 in the local communities, and the description of Agenda 21 as what? A comprehensive blueprint for sustainable planning. Apparently, in 1994, the APA didn't think of Agenda 21 as just an innocuous document with no consequences. Why do they say that now? Because we discovered the truth and we started telling Americans. That's why. Ooh, pay no attention. Second, a visit to the website of plannersnetwork.org. You write notes, write that down. Plannersnetwork.org. The APA is a member of this, and on there you will find in its statement of principles this quote. Quote, "We believe planning should be a tool for allocating resources and eliminating the great inequalities of wealth and power in our society, because the free market has proven incapable of doing this." End quote. The Planners Network is officially run by a group called the, you ready? Organization of Progressive Planners. The APA is a member of this. What does that make them? Progressive planners. What do we know about progressives? Duck. Hang on to your wallets. It's an association, this is their quote, this is from their website. It is an association of professionals, activists, academics, and students involved in physical, social, economic, and environmental planning in urban and rural areas who promote fundamental change in our political and economic systems. What do we have? The 3 E's? There it is again. And it's their definition. This is the statement of principles that your local planners and their so-called local plans adhere to. That is Agenda 21. So much for local planning. Just compare that quote with the planner's statement of principles with the earlier ones from the avowed Marxists like Ted Trainer or the speakers at the Rio Plus 20 summit and their call for zero economic growth. Third example. The main tool used by local planners to enforce their agenda are government grants. Lots of them. They tell your local elected officials that they can help pay for all these wonderful plans that they're proposing. Of course, the planners fail to mention that they actually helped write those grant programs at the federal level, and they made sure they were complete with vital strings attached to completely enforce Agenda 21 policies after the local officials gleefully drink the Kool-Aid and accept the grant, just as they had planned from the start. That's how it's implemented. Case in point, the 1998 Federal Register, documenting the details of the EPA's Sustainable Development Challenge Grant Program, has this paragraph in it in the report. Quote, "The Sustainable Development Challenge Grant Program is also a step in implementing Agenda 21. So, in these three documents, you have enough proof to completely discredit the American Planning Association and its denials that it has anything to do with some innocuous, their words, 20-year-old UN document that has no enforcement capability. They are lying to you, and they know it. Issue 4. Cheap energy is the enemy of the earth. To the average person, the drive to stop our inability to obtain cheap energy doesn't make any sense. You mean we could get gasoline at 50 cents a gallon still? Don't do that. People are hurting economically. Jobs are lost. Energy costs are skyrocketing. Any attempt to drill oil, fracking of shale gas, and mining oil, or mining coal, are all vigorously blocked by government and green policy. Instead, the government spends billions of dollars on alternative energy, such as wind and solar, which provides less than 3% of our energy needs, and it has no hope of growing. Why? What is the motivation to put such shackles on the U.S. economic engine? The excuse, of course, is that energy use drives up CO2 emissions and accelerates global warming. That's the excuse necessary to harmonize the U.S. into the sustainable global noose. But, according to some anti-energy advocates, the fear of cheap energy goes beyond environmental protection. That's the excuse. Every time we say the environment in this, understand, that's the excuse. That's to get you to throw all of your liberties on a bonfire like a good old-fashioned book burning. But according to some, it goes beyond that. Energy availability, they say, helps build wealth for individuals and removes them from the roles of the dependent. And you see, dependency on government is a little mentioned but major goal of sustainable policy. Got quotes from them too. Professor Paul Ehrlich, professor of population studies at Stanford University, says, quote, "Giving society cheap, abundant energy is the worst thing that could ever happen to the planet." Amory Lovins of the Rocky Mountain Institute said, quote, I love this one, "Complex technology of any sort is an assault on human dignity. It would be little short of disastrous for us to discover a source of clean, cheap, abundant energy because of what we might do with it." Children, 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 stop trying to change our society. We're all just nice and organized right here. Shh. We're afraid what you might do with those tools. And Jeremy Rifkin, Greenhouse Crisis Foundation, said, quote, "The prospect of cheap fusion energy is the worst thing that could happen to the planet." Apparently, energy used by man is the worst thing that can happen to the planet. Issue number 5, Common Core. Many people see the reorganization of public schools as separate from Agenda 21. It is not. Those who are promoting what they call the century, understand that it is going to be a long, drawn-out process to reform a nation that has been created on the ideals of limited government, free enterprise, and individual liberty, into one that unquestionably accepts government top-down control as an absolute, must take its time. It will take time to do that. They must wait out those of us who were educated in the old system. We who were taught that we were born with our rights and that government's job is to protect those rights. The sustainable system says government will grant us our rights. Whatever gang of thieves are in power at the moment will decide what your rights will be. Just wait a minute, we'll tell you. To enforce such a radical turnaround of our society requires that the children be indoctrinated to accept it. The effort in that direction started in earnest in the 1990s with the election of Bill Clinton. In November of 1992, 1992 seemed to be a really bad year for freedom. Mark Tucker, of the National Center on Education and the Economy, wrote the famous Dear Hillary letter. You can find it on the internet. In fact, Phyllis Schlafly has it on her Eagle Forum webpage. The Dear Hillary letter. This 18-page letter was the blueprint for what became the complete transformation of our public education system. It outlined a plan to, quote, remold the entire American system into a seamless web that literally extends from cradle to grave, a system of labor market boards at the local, state, and federal levels where curriculum and job matching will be handled by counselors, assessing the integrated computer-based programs, end quote. This led to Goals 2000, School to Work, Workforce Development Boards. These programs set children on the path to accepting top-down control as schools became mainly training centers to create the workers of tomorrow. The original American education system effectively provided an overall academic education from which students could then choose their own futures, just based on what they knew. They could adapt, they could be taught. No longer. Today, the new curriculum has morphed into what is called Common Core. It's a national-run central curriculum that revamps schools as little more than job training and indoctrination centers. Because you see, today's curriculum is also designed to strip the children of their attitudes, values, and beliefs that parents may instill in them and indoctrinate them into accepting global values, global citizenship, and global economy based on the sustainable agenda. Little of American civics and history is taught in today's classrooms, but textbooks contain whole chapters on the 5 pillars of Islam, while ignoring the 10 commandments of Christianity. The children are fed an unending diet of the evils of capitalism, the selfishness of individualism, and the social justice of redistribution of wealth. It punishes students for possessing individuality and is designed to eliminate such natural human tendencies. That is the common in Common Core. Common values, common goals, common failure, common future. Don't rock the boat of a well-ordered society. Common Core is the curriculum necessary for the acceptance and implementation of Agenda 21. And today, nearly every adult up to the age of 40 has gone through this indoctrination and trained to accept the future chosen for them by someone else. Now, if you're 40 or less and you're here, somehow you have managed to move through the system and throw off the shackles and the indoctrination hasn't taken, thank you very much. You are our future. Issue 6, healthcare. Now, how is that connected to Agenda 21? Simply Google sustainable medicine, and you will find more than 5,850,000 references to the subject, sustainable medicine. Read through the ideas expressed there and you will find nearly every provision of Obamacare. A friend of mine, who passed away several years ago, was an expert on sustainable medicine. She was the late Dr. Madeline Cosman. She put it this way, quote, "Sustainable medicine plus sustainable development equals duty to die." How do we handle the preconceived overpopulation problem? Central control of the healthcare system. Obamacare. Sustainable medicine makes your medical decisions for you through visioning councils, usually staffed by bureaucrats with little or no medical knowledge. Yet they are assigned the power to determine what shall be done or not done for your medical treatment. Sound familiar? Sustainable medicine is the pivot around which all other sustainable development revolves. Population control. The first principle of the Rio Declaration that introduced Agenda 21 is that all humans must live in harmony with nature. It means rationing healthcare, low technology for healthcare, treatment and emphasis on healthcare, on care, not cure. Americans must understand and connect these dots to everyday policy so they can understand the root and the long-term goals of rules and regulations that are affecting their personal lives. Agenda 21 is intended to restrict our society in our form of government, so that government is not run by the consent of the government, but the government must seek the consent of the government for health care, for education, for jobs, for food, for transportation. That is Agenda 21. It is the common core, and it has already invaded every corner of our lives. And I know, as I said earlier, sometimes it feels hopeless to stop it. First, we must understand the nature of the threat that we face. The fact is, this is a political movement led by those who seek to control the economy, dictate development, and redistribute wealth worldwide. They use the philosophical base of Karl Marx, the tactics of Adolf Hitler, and the rhetoric of the Sierra Club. Basically, everything connected with sustainable development translates to higher costs, shortages, and sacrifice. The danger is in the process, how it's being put together. Sustainability policies are being forced on unsuspecting citizens. They use predetermined outcomes and group manipulation tactics to force their way into public policy. So, now I know that what I've just given you is the IMAX version. It's huge. You're looking up at the screen and you can even see the pores in the perpetrator's face. Huge. How in the world do we stop that? What do we do? How can my little effort manage anything? Well, first thing you have to do is bring that IMAX screen down and focus. Each little piece and part. What I'm going to show you, I'm going to tell you, I'll give you one warning. Don't try what I'm going to show you alone. Because when you do try it alone, what do? You just stomp on like an ant on the floor. You need power, you need organization. But, bear with me a moment here. I'm going to show you some things. I hope it will help you. First of all, I need 5 volunteers. 5 folks to come up here and stand with me for a few minutes. Okay. Now, stand right up here. I'm going to hold an election here. You are a county commissioner. the idea behind it. So you could sit down and have a cup of coffee with them and talk to them and work things. You know, this thing you're talking about, this regulation, you know what's going to do to my land? You know what it's going to do? My business can't support any more taxes. I need, you know, so you sit down and talk to them. And representatives, I mean, they may not listen to you, but they, you know, they might. And that was the idea. And why did they run for office? For the most part, they're good people. They wanted to run and be part of their community and help out. So, with that expectation, this is your government. Now we're putting these policies in place, and you say, oh, this is bad news. And after you've listened to me, you can have and say, you know, you guys are implementing international policies, Agenda 21. And what's been happening to you when you've done this? What's been happening? How many people have tried this? And what's happened? Will anybody listen?
No.
Not much.
No.
Now, why haven't they listened? I need 4 more volunteers, please. Guys, stand over here.
One more. Come on, ladies. We need equal opportunity here.
One more. These are non-speaking parts. Now, I tell you, I tried this in front of 350 cowboys from Wyoming. I could not get these people up. You are the Sierra Club. You are Hickley.
Oh, they're best.
You, Cindy, are the American Planning Association. Yeah, right. And you are the local environmental planning group. And I said my county is the Piedmont Environmental Council. Somebody told me here, what was the group, the letter you gave me? Central Florida. Yeah, that's who you are. Okay. Now, who are these guys? These are 501c3 organizations for the most part. They're private groups. Who are they? What did they do? They... Oh, heck with it. Can you all hear me? Can you all hear me okay? Okay. Screw it.
Yeah.
These guys, by the way, in my little town, in Warrenton, Virginia, there are, I have 4 here, there are 17 organizations that we've been able to count there. Some of them are historic preservation groups, some of them are just working on bike trails, some of them are working on conservation easements, on and on and on. They all have their own, they all have their own agenda, their own private agendas. They raise money to do these things. But they, for the most part, prior to Agenda 21 being introduced in 1992 at the Earth Summit, there were a series of these meetings. They went clear back into the 60s and the 70s. In the 70s, they had what were called habitat conferences. They had Habitat 1, Habitat 2. During all of these conferences, these guys were working behind the scenes to create documents that slowly but surely culminated into what eventually became Agenda 21. It's their private agendas. Now, as soon as George H.W. Bush signed Agenda 21 in 1992 at the Earth Summit, by the way, the Southern Poverty Law Center is correct. Agenda 21 is not a treaty. It is what's called a soft law policy. That means that it's voluntary, it's a guideline, they're true about that, and it is a comprehensive blueprint for what they want our society to be. These guys wrote that. They then went into the federal government, they started working with the bureaucracy, they started working with members of Congress, and they wrote this whole slew of grant programs through HUD, through HEW, through the EPA, through others. They went in and they did that. And so, after they did that, they went into state legislatures. And they got your elected representatives there to pass regulations on the counties that they all have to do comprehensive development plans. Now you've got your county commissioners standing there, and your city councilmen are going, what the heck is a comprehensive development plan? level that wrote it, on the federal level that wrote it, on the state level, they force you to have to do this, and they come in and they go, look what we've got. We've got it all in a box for you. We've got international regulations on plumbing and on electricity. Everything you need right here, pressed real hard. There's 150 copies. We got it all for you. And by the way, never worry, we got money for it too. Here comes the grants. And so these guys want to revitalize downtown. Oh, got the money for that. Of course, now you're going to have to narrow the streets, put bike lanes in. You're going to have regulations on what kinds of building materials they can use. We got historic preservation here, so be careful. Boom, 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 boom. These guys. That's what they did. And they're not just in your community. They're behind your state representatives. They're behind your county, your congressman. What else do they create while they're there? To put all this in place. All kinds of planning boards. You've got watershed councils and action councils and historic preservation councils. And now try to deal with your elected officials now. What are they going to say when all this is set up? I don't know anything about that. You need to ask the Planning Commission. You need to ask the Action Council, the Water Council. And you go in, and who's staffing these things? Their members. That's who. And what do they think of your complaint? Well, they don't think of it. That's what they do. That's how it operates. And regional government is all of this on steroids. Yeah, I'm dealing with a regional government in Montgomery County, Ohio, where a lady named Jenny Granado had a 150-year-old house, farmhouse, historic house. And the regional government decides they're going to put bike lanes. Why? Because they got money for it. And when they take the money, when the money comes into their hands, it's like heroin. They can't give it up. They can't get rid of it. It's stuck. So now they're putting this bike lane through Jenny's front yard. It came through, tore out the entire front yard, and the bike lane's within 7 feet of her front door. Her mother came out and saw what had happened to the house she lived in her whole life, and she lied down and died right there from a heart attack. She was so upset, the injustice of it. And when the people tried to organize and go in and do something about it, what were they told? They went to the county commissioners and they said, oh, no, the regional government did that. So they went to the regional government. You know what they said? Well, we don't have anything to do with that. There was nobody to complain to, nobody to talk to. There was nothing to be done. Because these people gave them the power. If they didn't have the power, if they didn't have these people giving it to them, if these people weren't listening to them, they'd have no power at all. But, not the end of the story. I need 7 more volunteers.
Won't people up?
I told you before I'm done, you're all with me.
Run. CPR.
This is the International City County Management Association, a 501c3 organization that promotes the concept of council manager. City administrators are hired instead of your elected mayor. Yay! This is a National Association of Counties. Now in Virginia, we had the Virginia Association of Counties, also a 501c3 organization. We've asked them for their 990 report that they have to file with the IRS. Can't seem to find it. But in Virginia, they were highly behind trying to stop a major property rights bill that we were working to pass there. They don't like property rights. The National League of Cities, a 501c3 private organization. U.S. Conference of Mayors, a 501c3 private organization that has adopted Agenda 21 as its official policies. The Council of State Governments, a 501c3 private organization. The National Conference of State Legislatures. Am I missing one? Yeah, you are. Oh, okay, you're a total bureaucrat here, too. National Association of Governors. Now, what happens when you elect these guys to office to represent you?
In most cases, they are automatically made members of these organizations. And they go to their national conferences to listen, to learn. They want to learn about government. And who do they hear from? Them! They're the ones on the podium. They're the ones, and are even giving them examples, sample legislation to bring home. And when they come home, who greets them? Them! Hey, did you have a good meeting? Did you get that sample legislation? Hey, we'll help put this in place for you. This, ladies and gentlemen, is your government. You'll only see these guys. These guys stand behind them in everything that goes on. Now, you come to one of my meetings and you learn all this and you say, Agenda 21. You guys are implementing Agenda 21 in our community. They have never heard that phrase made because they never use it. All local. All local. So they throw you out. Well, what do we do about this? Let's try a new tactic. You come in to your county commissioners and you get that 3 minutes. It is not necessary for you to try to tell them everything you know. First of all, you need to focus on the very policy that you are objecting to. There's a reason you're there. There's a reason things are happening you don't like. Focus on that one issue for the moment. But don't talk about Agenda 21 at this level. I'm going to say this. Gentlemen, as you're bringing these plans and these planners into our community, I just have one question for you. What guarantees do I have that protect my private property rights? That's it. I guarantee you to a person. They will stand up and say, of course I will. Hey, I'm a property owner too. Of course I will. And you just smile and you say, I'm really happy to hear you say that. But ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to have it in writing, please. Now, watch this one.
What did you say? Didn't hear.
I'd like to have it in writing, please. We've created a resolution to protect citizens' property rights. What this document says is, if they're going to discuss something that's going to affect your property, they'll bring you into the discussion. Doesn't mean they won't go ahead with it. But if they do go ahead with it, it says they're going to compensate you for it. And finally it says, these guys have no right to come on your property to do all the little measuring and all the checking about everything without your signed permission. It's still yours. That's what this document says. Really radical. Really radical. Now, I guarantee you, they will not sign it. I've got it on videotape, they won't sign it. We had a county commissioner in Southern Virginia who said, I won't sign that document. The lady who was presenting it said, well, why not? I don't get in a debate with you. I said, I don't debate you. Why won't you sign it? I think there's a bigger issue afoot here. Really? It's a secret society for property rights? I've had people say, when you're telling these tactics in public, won't the other side hear what you're telling us? I don't care. I will tell them all this, and I'll still say, as you're bringing these plans and these planners into my community, what guarantees do I have to protect my property rights when you sign this document? I don't care. They know this. So, you cannot do this alone. This is not a legal document. I'm not pretending that it is. It is a tool. It is for you to go in and take a poll of the morality of your elected officials on what they believe and how they believe in property rights. That's what you're doing. Because now, when they refuse to sign it, the fun begins. This is why you can't do it alone. First of all, when you go to that meeting, you've got to have 10, 15 people with you at that meeting. And when they say they won't sign the document, you're going to ask the most radical question in the English language. Why? And when they still won't answer, then And you need to have, everybody stand up. Everybody, stand up. When they refuse to sign it, everybody needs to say, why? Everybody say it. Why?
Why?
Say it again.
Why?
Say it again.
Why?
That's the way your county commissioner meetings need to sound when you're up there. Not by yourself, they go poof, you're gone. They need to hear from you, all of you. 10, 15 people doing this. Now, we're not done yet. After you have done that, you come back the next week. You have somebody else go up to the podium. As you bring these plans and these planners into my community, what guarantees do I have to protect my property rights? Why won't you sign this document? Ask it over and over. More people and more people. And out in the hallways, you've got signs with their pictures on it saying, why won't they sign this document to guarantee my property rights? Then you go into the neighborhoods with a petition. Did you know that our county commissioners don't believe in protecting your property rights? No. You start a campaign to throw them out of office. That's what this is about. Because once you do that, and you elect people who understand what you're saying, who understand what America should be about, who understand private property rights, guess what happens? These guys have no power in your community. They dry up and blow away. That's the goal. Thank you.
Okay, I got both of you. I got both of you on video. Turning traitor. Oh, he's got Welton running scared.
Okay. Now, let me just finish. Because I might go over my time here. I'm sorry. Let me just finish. As I said in the beginning, I know how difficult it is to face up to this. It's easy for me to stand here and give you all this in my controlled environment. Unfortunately, the other side has mouths that start talking and actions that start happening and money that starts being paid out and all that. So, nothing ever goes so smooth. I'm trying to give you a basic idea. But as I said at the very beginning, the size of the crowd, the size of the amount of people you have doesn't matter. You do not need everybody behind you to make an effect. The other side is absolutely terrified. The one criticism they gave that I like the most is that we are punching above our weight. Terrific. That's a criticism. I often think back. How many of you have ever seen the movie Robin Hood with Russell Crowe? Have you seen that movie? I was really taken when I watched it. These folks who were fighting for freedom, 13th century England, where they had no rights whatsoever. The king owned everything. He could tax you to death, put you out of business, he'd kill you if he wanted to. No problem, he had a party that night. He could, there's no private property. You put yourself in the position of these people. You're light years ahead of these people, from where we are. But they fought. And according to the movie, I don't know if this is actually true or not, but it really struck me. They had an old slogan that was kind of a secret when they passed back and forth. And the slogan was, rise and rise again until lambs become lions. And the idea was, it doesn't matter if you go down to city council, county commissioners today, and you make an effort, even if you lose, you have made an impact. You have been heard. If you get the newspaper doing editorials calling you crazy, doesn't matter. You've done something. You aren't laying back and nothing is happening. Something is happening. And every single time you take that action, somebody else hears you. Somebody else joins your movement. It might be one here, one there, one here. You're going to get stronger. Do not stop. Don't compromise on principle. Never compromise on principle. And you certainly don't compromise on anything until you've at least had the war. Then, when you know you can't go any farther, you might say, okay. But then come back the next time, for a little bit more. I just worked with some folks in Oklahoma who were trying to get through a property rights anti-Agenda 21 bill. And they got it through the House, and they got it through the Senate committee, breezed through. All of a sudden, it's heading for the Senate floor, and the other side, suddenly in all their utter horror, went, oh my God, look at this! And they moved up to stop it. And the guys there, I said, don't be discouraged. If it looks like they're going to gut the bill, they're going to pass a bad bill, you work to kill the bill. Come back next year and put stronger language in it that would be their worst nightmare, and push that after you've had a year to lay the groundwork. That's what we have to do, step by step by step. We didn't get here overnight. Sam Adams didn't have all of the American people behind him for his revolution, for independence. He was happy with 10%. I would be happy with 10%. We can turn this thing around 10%. Every step you take, every move forward, it's a little bit more, a little bit more. Rise and rise again until lands become lions. Thank you.
Taking any questions?
Yes.
So any questions?
Questions?
All right, sure. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
What do you think about the strategy of amending state constitutions to guarantee property rights and to forbid local governments just to confiscate without due process? Do you think that would solve it?
That is the tactic. I'm glad you brought that up because I forgot something very important, and I can answer with that. Yes, this has been the tactic. What the question was, passing legislation that defends property rights in the state legislatures. This is what has been tried across the country for Alabama, of course, was the first to pass a law, and the governor signed anti-Agenda 21 property rights. Tennessee got it through everything with the governor. As I said, Oklahoma tried, but they just failed in the Senate. People are trying to do that. That's what you're trying to do. And I'm absolutely for that. Absolutely. But here's been the problem of what people have done in these states. The Alabama law says basically, we're going to ban Agenda 21 here, and we're going to protect property rights. Well, first of all, the other side never uses the term Agenda 21, so when they bring their programs in, they're going to say, well, this isn't that. This is local. Second of all, what are property rights? Property rights have become such a... People don't... The idea of being able to stand on your property and say, cross that line and take the consequences, they put you in jail today. It used to be, I'm the king of my castle. This is mine. This is my property. I'll defend it. No more. So people don't know what it means. What do you protect property rights? Oh yeah, we protect the property rights. Just move over a little bit. Because see, we need to get into your property. We need to do this because we don't want to damage the environment. We have to do this. So if you have your property here, you pay the taxes, pay the mortgage. Shut up. We're going to take care of this. So if you're going to pass legislation like this, you've got to put some teeth in it. Of course, the more teeth you put in it, the harder it is to do it, because the other side will work themselves and they will stand up. This is why before you do it, you need to, before you put it in legislation, you need to do some things to lay the groundwork to sell it, to build some support for it anyway. One of the things the opposition did in Oklahoma was they went to every single local community and they said, if the state passes this law, they're going to take away your ability to do your job. They're going to take away your ability to do zoning. They had every city council and mayor in the state rising up against this bill. That wasn't what we're talking about at all. We're talking about regulations that say you can't have your grass any higher than this. We're talking about regulations that say you can't put a little garden in your lawn, in your yard. You know, these kind of things. And instead, they use that excuse. The number one thing you have to do is have a definition for what you're talking about. I found what I think is the best definition on property rights I've read. And this is, and one of the good things about this definition is it was written by a Supreme Court justice in the state of Washington in response to a property rights action. And so that gives it the power behind it of it being legal. You didn't just sit around your dining room table and write it. It's an illegal document. Listen to this. Quote, property in a thing consists not merely in its ownership and possession, but in the unrestricted use, of the unrestricted right of use, enjoyment, and disposal. Anything which destroys any of the elements of property to that extent destroys the property itself. The substantial value of property lies in its use. If the right of use be denied, the value of the property is annihilated and ownership is rendered a barren right. It's all about use, your ability to enjoy it, your ability to do what you want to do. When somebody comes in and says you can't do that, you have lost control of your property. Now, what they did in Oklahoma, because I gave them this, all they put in the bill was property in a thing consists not merely in its ownership and possession, but in the unrestricted right of use, enjoyment, and disposal, period. The other side grabbed hold of that word unrestricted. Oh my goodness! And they went crazy over it, and they used it against you. They're going to put a pig farm next to your house? They really hate pigs. They really do. They always use that as the example. But you've got to have a strong definition, and I think that's a good one. And it's on our website, by the way. It's in the booklet we have. By the way, everything I just told you today is in my booklet back here, a little $6 booklet on how to stop Agenda 21. And and that resolution is in there as well, as is this definition. So, yes, sir.
Got an issue for you, Tom. You give me an answer. We have a problem in Highlands County. We're dealing with the county already. We've charged them on it, and they pulled it off the agenda. Where do you see the military coming into this program? Because like the bombing range down there is trying to institute laws through environmental stuff where determining what kind of lighting you can have in your homes, whether you can shine a light in the air or not, how late your business can stay open because of the light pollution and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, it's getting that bad. Where do you see the military playing in this game?
Well, they're all part of the game now. Every part of the government is a tool in every possible way. And, for a while, the Army was the victim. They couldn't even do training because if they were going across the path of a desert tortoise, they had to stop the whole training session, all the tanks, everything else, until the family moved across, and so we've ruined our military that way. But, and they also had a big problem with lead bullets. I don't know, I think sponge bullets are so much nicer to deal with. Yeah, I mean, the light pollution thing. Of course, I can see around, you're talking about, they're using excuse of a military base and lights around it that somehow interfere with planes coming in?
We're talking 6 or 8, 10 miles away from this bombing range, like in the city of Sebring.
Yeah.
I mean, in the city.
Do they really have bombing ranges inside the city? What great practice! Yeah, They're using any tool they can, anything. And another major tool they're using is the food police. And if you're enjoying Coca-Cola and chocolate, as I do, look out. Those are the newest things that are attacked. And just absurd things that they're going after. There's just no stone left unturned. That's all I can really say to you about it. They're using every tool. The Army is under their control, so they can come out and, make those comments. So, yeah.
Was the eminent domain at the beginning of all of this so people would get accustomed to the word of eminent domain? You can seize the property, you can give a few cents on a dollar. And then what I want to know, second part of the question is that if you are going to be having all these people out of their homes and displays to pack and stack, I want to know who's going to be occupying those homes.
The eminent domain, you're talking about from the beginning, in the Constitution, you're talking about the eminent domain?
Well, not that far, but the eminent domain as far as...
Well, I mean, originally, in the Constitution, it was very clear. You read the Federalist Papers, definitions of what the Founding Fathers meant by things, that the use of eminent domain was only to be for very specific government purposes like military bases or government buildings or roads that they deemed needed to go through a place. That was it. The biggest problem we have now is that in 2005, the Supreme Court decision on Kelo, the Kelo decision, radical to anything ever said, any precedent, anything about property rights, how these Supreme Court justices, I mean, but there's all these guys have to do is sit there all day and read the Constitution and other law books and look at it and look at precedents and say, is this constitutional or not? That's all their job is. And they don't even have to worry about job security. They're there for life. So what's the problem? But what they did was they made a radical change. And that change was that if a community decided that a piece of property would be more useful for the community under a different kind of use, they could come in and do that. So that meant, for example, and one of the justices used this as an example. She said, if you have a Motel 6 and want to come in and put a Hyatt Regency in there, you get more taxes out of that. So that's for the good of the community. We can do that. So essentially what they said was there is no private property anymore until we decide how it's to be used. What you ended up with, and one of this whole example I'm giving you, what you have here, you know your country has changed. You know there's an evil lurking here. Everywhere you turn, all those power mongers there are changing your government to a corruption beyond anything any founding father ever could have envisioned. All that money, all that power, and they're dangling it in front of them like a cat trying to reach it up there. That's what they're doing. And so now, with this Kelo decision, what they're doing is you now have these meetings in the back rooms with developers and elected officials saying, hey, we could put a whole development over here. You know all those little developments that were built after World War II, little ranch houses, and they maybe had a little quarter acre of land or something. They're all over the country. Maybe 100 houses in there. You know what? We could knock all those houses down, and we could build a multi-story high-rise building that is worth 50 times more than all those houses in there. Look what that would do for the community. Yeah, let's do that. Boom, you're out of your house. Eminent domain. And that's how it's working.
So who's going to be occupying, once they take all those people out, who's going to be occupying those houses and homes and all?
Go for tourists.
I'm talking about further out. I'm talking about past the suburban area.
Past the what?
The suburban area.
Yes, yeah. You've seen this. Someone back there. All the red, no human activity whatsoever. The yellow, limited human activity with the idea of eventually it becomes no human activity. What you have are mega cities on the East Coast, the West Coast, Chicago, places like that. Yeah. Yeah.
I wanted to maybe speak into what the lady was saying, who's going to inhabit those houses. That happened to one of my aunts in Pennsylvania. The city came in, it was quite a large area, and everybody had an individual house and property. Oh, I couldn't tell you, I would say the area covered, just thinking back, maybe 1 square mile, where it was a little bit of mixed use, because this was back in the, I'd say they did that back, probably in the 80s. So they have sole proprietor businesses, little restaurants and stuff, maybe neighborhood school. So what they did, they basically came in and they just bulldozed everybody out. Of course, they got a little bit of money. And then the areas, like you said, well, what would they do with the houses that the people had to move out of?
Or the land.
Or the land. That became conservation. Just all green and stuff. you might have a little swing set there and you can take your kids to the park, but most of it just turned into either you don't go in because it's conservation, which is really the true definition of, they go, well, this is going to be conservation, and people think it's going to be public property, but no, they fence this stuff off. And then they have the park and the common area. But then the rest of the people either had to move into, like Tom was saying, a high-rise, or just find another house, which my aunt and my grandmother eventually, they found different homes, but they did have to move out of their, neighborhood that they liked, their quaint neighborhood that they liked, with the local schools, they have the little schools. So all that I was amazed when I went back up there to see, because I had, gone up there all of my life when I was a child, and I thought, it's like a whole thing, a city. They just take, where'd the city go? And you're just trying to picture where the streets were and the houses, and you can't, because they come into a clean sweep. And that is a real story where I'm still amazed today. I go up there and I just can't even envision how it used to be, because it's no more. It's like taking,
The point of it is, there are two branches of sustainable development. One is in the cities, and it's smart growth. You're familiar with that. They drive a little wall around, basically, to say no activity outside of this area. The other is the Wildwoods Project, which is the rural areas. And that's what's been going on for the last 20 years. The attack on Clive and Bundy, these attacks on ranchers, the mining industry, the timber industry, is to destroy them. There are whole towns in the West that have shut down because they couldn't cut the trees anymore because of the spotted owl which they made up, and that there was nothing to feed the mill, which is what kept the town alive, and so forth. The towns died. What happened to the people? Went into the cities. Herd them. We use the term herding them into the cities, and of course the other side just starts to laugh hysterically that what a conspiracy theory that is. You just described exactly what they do with it, and that's how it happens. I need to, and my time is up, isn't it? Joyce? Or Cindy, my time's up.
Tom, we were discussing coming over here an issue about all the crap that they keep throwing at us, so we keep splintering. Everybody, got all these groups, but everybody's fighting a different issue.
Yeah. I'll just finish that. The divide and conquer that we're facing, they do it on purpose. The reason that they put all those attacks against us, they're dividing and conquering. And that we're all crazy, and we're just crazy conspiracy theorists. And they bring in, there are crazy conspiracy theories out there that I don't want to deal with, I don't want to touch, because they are crazy. But there are forces among them that come into our movement and try to bring up crazy things and make us all look crazy. And their whole purpose is to get behind our lines and discredit us. So there is that element there, and that divide and conquer. But one of the reasons, what I was saying there at the end, to get the IMAX version, you bring it down to focus. This is what you have to do. And looking at, as I said briefly, the issue. What is it that's brought you there in the first place? There's something they're doing. It's not just the overall thing, because City Council, County Commissioners didn't have a grand document they all signed that says, we're implementing Agenda 21. They're doing it piece by piece. So there are individual issues that you are upset about to begin with. And you may know the whole thing, but you need to focus on that one issue. And here's how you can get more allies to work with you. There are people who are victims of that policy. It may be just this neighborhood, it may be the entire community. But if it's just a little area there they're going to focus on, they're going to try to tear all these houses out and put some kind of industrial park in there or something. That happened in Carroll County, Maryland. You need to go into those people and tell them this is how you can recruit and get more people on your side. So you've got to know the whole picture, but you need to take it. Don't let them divide and conquer you, though. Don't let them think, well, I got to work on this issue. It's more important than this one. They're all equal. They're cutting you here and they're cutting you there. But it's very important that you have individuals who are focusing on certain issues and become experts on those issues so that they can effectively, work on those things. Is that one more and all.
My name is Roger Daldala from Manatee County, Florida, and I've been part of the Tea Party Manatee as well as Freedom Works in D.C. trying to help fix the country. And we decided that we needed a new strategy because of the divide and conquer. We really got poor results. And we asked ourselves, what's the root cause here? The root cause was the progressives throwing a continuous stream of unconstitutional initiatives at us, dividing us, and so then we asked, is there one goal that if we all got in the boat together and rowed towards that goal, even if it took 4 or 5 years, 10 years, that we could turn it all back? And we said, yes, it's pretty simple. It's to restore our Constitution. So then we said, okay, well, how do you go about restoring your Constitution? And we surveyed the nation, and we found a little group called the National Liberty Alliance. And what we're doing in Manatee County now, and a bunch of other counties in Florida, is that we're reestablishing what's called the common law grand jury. It's the #1 tool our founders gave us to keep the government centered on the Constitution. But they made it go dormant in 1946, so we're just resurrecting it. And I'd like to propose that in your design of the system that you have here, we're missing a huge, powerful block, and that's the ABA, the American Bar Association. Turns out the American Bar Association has flooded all 3 branches of government. So we used to have 3 independent branches of government. We used to have checks and balances between them. Now they're all being run primarily by lawyers. And if you want to Google something to open your eyes up, Google the missing 13th Amendment. Because in 1810, Congress passed an amendment that basically prohibited lawyers from political office. If you ran for office, you lost your citizenship. But fundamentally, I'll summarize this with a very simple formula. Very, very simple formula. The first step is we must restore justice to the justice system. Then we can restore the Constitution. And then, this is the key element, you saw the commissioners up here. Everybody that takes a wage or salary from the treasury, the public treasury, has an oath to support and defend the Constitution. We just are not holding them accountable to their oath. So when we fix the justice system, we can hold them accountable to their oath of office. That's our formula in Manatee.